Academic publishing often operates under the misconception that slightly rewriting an existing sentence constitutes original work. These minor changes represent documented scientific misconduct. Verbatim or direct plagiarism is the most recognizable offense. It defines a cut-and-paste culture where researchers lift entire text blocks without providing citations. Mosaic plagiarism occurs when an author steals ideas from multiple sources and stitches them together, merging them without acknowledgement. Authors also trigger violations through self-plagiarism or salami slicing by segmenting a single research outcome into redundant papers to inflate their record. These offenses extend to image plagiarism and cyber plagiarism, involving the theft of online data. Critically, review boards do not recognize accidental plagiarism as a defense. Ignorance of citation rules does not exempt an author from the consequences. Because publishers evaluate the text rather than the author's intent, these overlapping fragments represent a direct and immediate threat to a researcher's career. The Committee on Publication Ethics, or COPE, serves as the global standard setter. Their primary objectives are to educate researchers and ensure the integrity of the scientific record. Under their code of conduct, authors must provide credible, genuine research findings free from manipulation. Authorship is governed by rigid inclusion criteria. To be listed, an individual must provide a substantial contribution to the study's conception, design, or data analysis. Granting gift authorship to non-contributors or omitting researchers who performed the actual work distorts the responsibility for the science and violates ethical standards. Authorship disputes are escalated directly to journal editors or to COPE, where the corresponding author must justify the list of contributors. Beyond authorship, research involving human or animal subjects requires formal ethical approval before data collection begins. This includes obtaining informed consent forms for human subjects and securing clearance from the Institutional Animal Ethics Committee for animal research. Failure to disclose these clearances during the submission process leads to the immediate rejection of the manuscript. Skipping these foundational steps creates a fatal legal and ethical flaw in the manuscript that cannot be corrected after the fact. During the submission phase, the manuscript is first exposed to detection software that analyzes the work for structural overlap. Major publishers rely on industry-standard tools like Turnitin, iThenticate, and Grammarly to perform these checks. These systems utilize deep search technology to analyze the architecture and structural logic of the writing. Through fingerprinting and pattern analysis, the software identifies unique word fragments and specific ordering. Swapping synonyms fails to hide the text's underlying structural order. Pattern analyzers specifically expose mosaic and paraphrasing attempts that are impossible for humans to track manually. Tools like Cross-Ref Similarity Check compare submissions against published articles and unpublished manuscripts in global databases. If significant overlap is detected, publishers like Hindawi reject the manuscript instantly. Because these databases grow daily, older papers that previously escaped detection can be flagged retroactively as new sources are digitized. Standard online plagiarism checkers often lack access to the deep institutional databases used by academic publishers, giving authors a false sense of security. These algorithms process structural mathematics, not just words, making a clever rewrite impossible to hide from the system. Beyond software, the Code of Conduct requires expert reviewers to verify originality and notify the editor of published similarities. The editor-in-chief must then evaluate scientific importance while removing commercial or political influence. During Stage 2 review, a minimum of 3 expert reviewers evaluate the genuinity of the data and the logic of the methodology. Human reviewers are trained to detect manual tells, like abrupt shifts in writing style between paragraphs. Fluctuations in English fluency often indicate that portions of the text have been patched in from other sources. Reviewers are ethically bound to keep this intellectual property confidential and are prohibited from making personal copies of the work. The editor then justifies their decision to accept or reject the manuscript based on the combination of software reports and these human expert evaluations. Together, software and human expertise create a dual-layered net, catching structural matches and intellectual inconsistencies. The moment an editor verifies misconduct, the administrative consequences begin to unfold. Penalties follow a predictable escalation. This sequence begins with a professional dropdown and a temporary hold on guideship, leading to the retraction of the paper and revocation of academic degrees. The ultimate costs include copyright law violations and the collapse of the host institution's accreditation. The 2008 Padium Chiranjavi chemistry case illustrates how these penalties manifest in the real world. Plagiarism resulted in the retraction of 19 papers, causing a permanent breakdown in his professional standing. Similar data fraud cases, such as Robert A. Sletsky with 25 retracted papers and John R. Darcy with 19, highlight the scale of institutional corrections. Under COPE mandates, if an author's response to an allegation is unsatisfactory, the editor is duty-bound to report the case. This report goes directly to the author's employer and institutional review boards for formal disciplinary action. Because retractions are public, they leave a permanent digital footprint of fraud that remains attached to an author's name indefinitely. Misconduct is a radioactive event. It destroys the author's career trajectory and undermines the integrity of their entire institutional network. There is only one foolproof defense against these algorithmic and human detection systems. Every borrowed fragment, idea, or phrase must be meticulously cited, regardless of the source. Effective paraphrasing demands that an author digest a core concept and synthesize it into an entirely new structural expression. Authors must always maintain authorship integrity, declare any potential conflicts of interest to ensure complete transparency. The main purpose of any publication is knowledge dissemination, a process that relies entirely on public trust in scientific findings. There are no shortcuts to contributing to the scientific community. Survival in academia requires an uncompromising commitment to research integrity.